Hi there, everyone. I'm Colette Jacobowitz from Mrs. J in the Library. And in this video today, I'm going to show you how you can save time using Google Classroom or other learning platforms when you're teaching kindergarten, first grade, and second grade library classes. Now, don't worry, I have another video coming for third, fourth, and fifth grade classes, and specifically about library centers, but that's coming up next. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge something before talking about anything related to Google Classroom or online learning is that the way the whole world did hybrid or blended learning really was terrible. Okay, the past 3 years we haven't done it very well. And I know there's a huge pushback, it feels like, that teachers don't really want to do things with technology as much. They want students to go back to doing more things on paper or more things with their hands. And let me acknowledge, that's fine. There is a time and a place always for hands-on learning, and I'm a big proponent of the maker movement. However, I do want to just note that using these tools can really enhance your instruction. So I discovered this first in 2017. I took an online teaching endorsement certificate program while I was on maternity leave and sabbatical. One of the most valuable things I learned and one of my biggest takeaways was that I could use these online learning platforms like Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Seesaw, and all of those to save time for myself. It was not only good for students to differentiate instruction and have a higher level of student engagement, but it also made my prep work and my lesson planning time decrease, which is a win for everybody, right? So here's how blended or hybrid learning can look in an elementary library class. That's for kindergarten, first, or even second grade, for those primary grade levels. So first, I'm going to assume that you've picked a platform, either one that your school district is using already, which is what you should always do, or if they haven't pushed you towards one platform or another, then you just pick your favorite, really. It's not a big deal what platform you use. They all pretty much have the same tools. But an important decision you should make is whether you're going to have one classroom or one area for a grade level or if you're going to have one for every single one of your individual classes. Now, this is more important for specialist teachers, of course. So this is an example here showing you what this could look like for a first grade library. Now, this would be a grade level classroom where you're going to have every first grade child in this Google Classroom. All right. And I haven't really changed anything before I just hit the create class button. The only thing I have changed is in stream settings. I changed this from students can post and comment to students can only comment. And you could even turn that off entirely where only teachers can be posting in the stream. Just make sure that you hit the save button before moving on. All right, so that's one way to do it. And for younger grade levels, this is fine. The only drawback I really see with doing this is that you will have a lot of students. You'll have every first grader in your whole school in this Google Classroom. And that can get a little unwieldy. I still wish they had a way to group students within a Google Classroom, but that's not, a feature that they have right now. So instead, the alternative would be to have a separate Google Classroom for each class. The only other drawback I can imagine is that students who have library class, they're special, on, Monday are going to see the assignment and the activity that you're doing. But if students don't have their library special until Thursday or Friday, they could potentially see what you're doing ahead of time. And they could potentially do the activity ahead of time, which then leaves you with students who are bored and need something else to do. So I could see that as a possible downside to doing it this way. However, you really would have to try it out to see. And just remember that everything you do in most of these platforms, you can always undo. So the other way to do things is to create a class. The only thing I would do differently here is when I create my class, I would write first Smith, and then I would type in library after that, kind of in it as a dash. So the child, when they see all of their choices of their different classrooms that they're involved in, it's going to be very clear. The other option I might do is I might put library first So it's different. It makes it very differentiated from their teacher's Google Classroom if they have one. So then when you create, it might take a few moments. And let me slide back over here. And here we go. Again, all I would do is change the stream settings here. You can customize things. These are all optional. But having one classroom for each of the classes that you have, the nice thing about this is while it is a little harder to manage, it's harder to balance making sure that you post things in a timely manner and you posted it to all of the classes, not just one of the classes. It does give you really granular control. And I personally liked that. By the time I got to my last 2 years of teaching, this was the way that I really preferred to teach my library lessons. So next, after you have your Google Classroom created, and perhaps you've changed these streaming settings here, all right, then you're ready to start posting things, okay? An important thing to note here is that my read aloud lesson or my mini lesson or my direct instruction section of class did not change at all. I still did that exactly the same. The difference was that when I dismissed students, right before I dismissed students to get their books for book exchange, I explained the directions, and instead of showing them a paper booklet, like this one for the graphic novels unit I taught to first grade, and showing them the activity that they would be completing and explaining it here, and holding it up and saying, you all have a paper booklet. Instead, I would show them in Google Classroom how they were going to complete their work, and it would all be within Google Classroom. So, of course, that meant they had to bring their Chromebooks and we had to practice logging in. Yes, I realize that's a learning curve, but trust me, by October and November, students will have it down pat, even the little ones. So here's how you would post things. And I sometimes did this seconds before students checked out because I just, forgot something. And that's really the beauty of this. So when you create something, I would really only use one of two of these, either an assignment or a material. A material is best for when students don't need to interact with anything. They're not typing anything, they're not moving anything around for the activity. They're just maybe clicking on a link to go someplace, okay? So I'll show you an example. This lesson is for the book, excuse me, but that is my book by Lauren Child, which I read to kindergarten or first grade as an orientation lesson. Now, this is the product as I sell it in my shop. I don't want to have all of these slides that I'm sharing with students. I really only want the activity slides. So I'm actually going to take out these first 5 slides, and I'm going to delete all of the slides at the bottom as well. Okay, so that leaves me just with the activities here. Now, this one really I designed for also using it with hybrid, with online instruction for students that were only learning online. So I'm actually going to put that activity at the bottom, something to do with a parent, but you could keep it there for students to watch the Daniel Tiger video if you wanted. And then if you have access to both PebbleGo and BrainPop Junior, then you could keep both of these and students have a choice of how they would like to learn more about beetles, bugs, and butterflies from the book. And you can either put the username in here or you could also just share your link. I know PebbleGo often will just give you the link that it directly logs them in, so you don't need this section for logging in. But now this is the activity as I want to share it with students, okay? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type in my title. And if you really want to get fancy, you could even add an emoji. I like to do this because it really kind of jazzed up how Google Classroom looked a little bit. Rarely did I put anything in the description. I just skipped over that entirely. And now you're going to attach something. So there's activity. All right, I know that doesn't match, but there it is. Now the student can see what the activity is. All right, and then I'm just going to come over here and post. Now, a material, remember, is something students don't actually have to do any real interaction with. So they can click on the link here, but the rest of this is just directions for them, really. Same with playing even the YouTube videos here. It's just clicking to play it. There's no reason for students to be able to manipulate anything or move anything around. So that's fine. students only really need to view these slides in order to do the activity. However, if you have to give grades, or sorry, if students have to earn grades for library, then I would recommend creating an assignment, even if you're not going to make it have points. Okay, so if I shrink myself a little bit there, all right. An assignment, I almost always made them ungraded, but you can make them have a few points, especially if it's like, 1 or 2 points for either incomplete or complete, or attempted or completed, that kind of thing. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my speech bubble and put the activity in. I'm going to attach it as a drive here. Here's my file. Okay, and then I can post it here. And now students are able to, since it's an assignment, students are able to turn it in when they are finished. And that can be a really easy way for you to see if it was completed, or it's just a way for students to say, hey, I did this. Even for something like this where you can't really tell if they actually accessed it, it can be a nice way to also take attendance. To just see who clicked into the activity. So then when you click assign, you can also schedule this out, by the way, which I loved being able to do. So I could schedule things for 5 or 6 weeks in advance. And now it appears here with a clipboard. And this one, you can see that this is your teacher view. You can see who's turned it in and who hasn't. And you can then, there, if I click on view assignment, this is again my teacher view. You would see everyone's activity here, and you would see who turned it in, and you can basically return it to them to say, yes, you did it, check mark. That's for ungraded assignments. You can also give it an assigned number for all of your grades. So moving on. Now, that might work for some activities, but I will be honest that most of the activities I create and that I shared with students were interactive. So this is an example of an activity for nursery rhyme comics, which is an excellent compilation of nursery rhyme comics illustrated by many different graphic novel artists, and just it's really amazing. Highly recommend. So for this activity, I'm doing the same thing where since I'm not sharing a read aloud in an online only platform or online only instruction, I'm actually going to take out the parts that I don't want and just keep the activities. Sure, I could create more activities here if I wanted to. I could give more activity choices or have a choice board. I'm not doing that today. We're just doing 2 different activities that students can, and we're going to share these with students. Now, you may notice that this one is more interactive. This is where students have to type something. However, the second activity doesn't really need students to click or do or move anything, okay? I'm giving them a choice here, but because students are typing in this text box to write their own nursery rhyme, that's why students need to have their own copy. Basically, if this were a paper activity, I would make a bunch of copies of this. But in Google Classroom, this one you have to post as an assignment. And this time, I'm going to and when I attach it this time, you'll see I have some different options. Here we go, add. Now when I post it here, I can choose to, students can view the file is always your default. And that's just like posting it as a material pretty much. The difference is you can give points or make it ungraded and students can turn it in. However, for this one, since every student needs an opportunity to be able to write their own nursery rhyme, you want to make a copy for each student. Then when I did the assigning, now when it appears here and students click on this, their own version of the file will have their name in the front. And this, again, allows students to turn it in. So that is how different things could get posted to your Google Classroom and how students could access them. The biggest time saver for teacher librarians is that you're not printing and copying things. Everything is in beautiful full color. It's a little bit more fun. You're offering more choices to students. So that part is really nice to be able to level up your instruction without much extra work. Okay, your work is more front loaded at the beginning, but after that, you can reuse these activities. You can reuse those Google Slides over and over again. Um, Finally, I will make one more point that if students are earning grades, using Google Classroom as kind of a way to see all of the students' work and grade and what they've completed and not completed is a really easy way to help you support the grade that's on their report card. So that if a parent would challenge you, you can have them look at Google Classroom. So I hope that if this was helpful to you, I hope you'll give hybrid and blended learning a little bit more of a chance and maybe try out letting your students complete their skills practice or independent work on Google Classroom to save yourselves the prep work and the lesson planning time. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video for managing 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade library classes in Google Classroom. See you soon.